welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And with me, Robbie.
And this week we return to our video Nasties feature with the long bands and the finally uncut version of Possession.
Yes, and this is for those who may not be unaware, because it kind of had like a resurgence in the last year or so when I think it finally got released on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
So it is a 1981 film by Andrzej Zalowski. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And it's a very interesting film. It's an interesting one.
It is. It's this is I mean, I'd heard it was weird anyway, because this is kind of built especially in the last year since it was like properly released. Now I don't know if it was actually just the Prime. I think it got a full restoration version.
Maybe, yeah.
After spending, we'll go more into the video nasty normally towards the end of the episode to kind of build a climax.
Yeah, I mean, it's fitting for the film. We will climax at the end. That's when you usually climax, and for the film it's kind of fitting.
Yeah, but we'll build towards more that kind of at the end of it. But this film spent a long time stuck. Before the restoration, it spent years of just an edited version. So it was like an 81-minute cut of it.
Yeah.
That's the one that kind of was really just had limited it down to mainly kind of more parts about the couple's parts. and mainly taken away quite a lot of the kind of actual horror or graphic parts of the film.
Yeah.
It really had cut down those parts, which just left you with a weird drama of two people, fighting in these really odd ways that didn't really have much semblance of a full horror, and also didn't fully make sense as a drama, so no one really knew what to do with this film.
Yeah.
Many people who had seen it, I think at the time, had been like, that was terrible, that didn't make any sense, and then, and some people may think about that, about the new version
yeah.
as well. But basically, the basic idea of this that kind of stems from, and that the director kind of made for, is this is like a couple going through a divorce. It's quite an autobiographical, from what I've read about the director, of the fact that he was going through a divorce pretty much around the same time that he wrote this film, and even still going on as he was starting to make this film. The director himself, Andre, is known to be quite a kind of out there director anyway.
Yeah.
He's not quite. This was his first English language film, so he wasn't very known in this area. He was more known as this odd foreign director who had this first chance. In the early 80s, there's a lot of foreign directors that got kind of their first go on, have a go.
Go on.
Go for it. Some of them worked, some of them were like, what did you do?
Yeah.
and as we've seen with foreign horrors, or as we've seen a lot when we look at Italian horrors and stuff like that, there is a certain acquired taste to their style that you kind of love it or hate it. I think you can either get on board with it, and sometimes you need to be forced to get on board with it. It's like the first time you have a beer. It's like at first you're like, what is this piss I am drinking?
Yeah.
This is disgusting. And then you have a weird taste that won't go away until you have your next beer.
Yeah, and that's how alcoholism starts.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you're 30 years old and all you've done is drink beer and you'll slowly die.
Yeah, you slowly die and you just drink it all day, but you can't get enough of that sweet, sweet taste. I think, before we get into it, this will obviously be my chance to do the cheap plug. Remember to hit that subscribe button, and please leave us a lovely review. We are gearing up to kind of hit the Christmas season, so what better present than hitting that like button and leaving us a lovely review. It's a very odd film, kind of going back to what you were saying about the stylistic choice of it.
Yeah.
Because when it opened up and it kind of had that very Euro horror, a bit like Giallo, kind of weird theme tune to it. And there's a lot of things that it does do that are very of that time. So there's a lot of rough cuts, a lot of music randomly starting and then just stopping.
Yeah.
And there are those kind
of... It also has the odd almost dubbed style.
Even
though it's in English, even though it is actually actors who are actually speaking in English language, it still appears to be rather the voice has still been added. I believe it, like almost the way they've done the voicing is like in some scenes it's like Sam Neill is like, Sam Neill, you can speak in English.
Yeah,
why is your voice like? Why is your mouth going at a different time? And it wasn't just my copy. I watched it on the Amazon Prime version, so it should have been fine. But it still has that unnatural. But it's not just that; it's also the dialogue itself, because it's been translated and written by a foreign director. I think with the help of someone who's a bit more fluent in English language. The dialogue has an unnatural style to it. Very
stunted.
Yeah, it has a very stunted. It takes time to get used to it. The thing I found is that I was thinking of it more, like I said, about the person going through divorce and basically writing down all their emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
This is more, to me, I more feel of it here like this is literally what it would sound like if someone was basically just writing a diary of their ideas down, and then they basically just turn that diary of ideas into dialogue. It kind of sounded like that to me. Like the director's just gone, this is what I feel about that bitch.
Yeah, this is that bitch.
This is how it is, this is what it is. And he's kind of turned that into some kind of like dialogue within the story kind of thing.
And then as he got more on, he got steadily drunker and just started wanking himself off about the most ridiculous philosophical stuff that just sounds like it was written by like a 14-year-old who's just discovered atheism. It's
bizarre.
It's a bizarre film, and I kind of really, at points I thought maybe I am enjoying this, and then at times I just thought like I'm really not enjoying this. It's a very weird film.
It was a back and forth for me. I was mainly, early in the film, it's kind of the first, say, like half of the film mainly feels, I actually found it kind of interesting because, it took a little moment for me to kind of get into it. And then I kind of felt like I kind of jived with the idea of this like emotional turmoil, and that if I thought of it more like, it almost felt like a theatre, like a play on screen. Like if you take a theatre, everything's kind of more overblown.
It had that melodrama kind of stage presence to it. Almost.
Yeah, it felt like every scene was staged, kind of like you were watching something in theatre, when they kind of have to overdo it and kind of ham it up a little bit because it works better on stage. If you do it in a standard film style on a stage, it feels a bit too subdued. It feels like the energy's not there. But on a stage, and this is what I felt from the actors like Sam Neill, that we're getting these quite over the top performances to show his emotional turmoil and how he's feeling inside, and he has to throw stuff around and he has to trash the whole cafe because he has to be like he has to be this emotional whirlwind that he's in. And when I started to read it as more of this kind of emotional letter of like divorce, I started to be like, okay, this is kind of interesting because they're kind of showing the extremes of the emotions you feel in quite a kind of over the top, but somewhat kind of just like, it's almost like you're showing your emotions like ripping your heart open on the stage kind of thing. That's kind of what I started to feel. That's why I actually started to be like, actually, I'm kind of okay with this, weirdly, which I didn't think I would be.
Yeah, I think it was just, I think the problem with that I found a lot of the times is like it gave with one hand and then it took with the other. There were like a perfect point is like, just to kind of briefly go through the plot. Mark, Mr. Sam Neill, is a spy who returns home to West Berlin, and he's like, they want to get him back for one more job. They ask about a guy. They're like, does your contact still wear pink socks? Which randomly comes up later. I'm sure somebody out there has some weird theory about how.
I'm going to say that's the only part of the film. The whole part about his job, I didn't really even register the spy thing, to be honest. I was kind of just like, what the fuck is your job?
Well, I think
because it was mainly like 2 or 3 scenes where it kind of was really like a part of it. So when they come later and say like, I need to come, you need to come back in, you need to do this, I was just like, what the fuck is
I think it's maybe just so they can set it in West Berlin, and it can link in with that, the kind of like Cold War and that kind of thing.
I mean, it makes the events later on a little bit less weird. But
it does it makes them a little bit less weird. It
still just seems like a really odd setup for the idea that you're doing.
Weird. But he's come back from this job and he's saying like, I got to basically come home and stay with my family. He wants to come back and be the family man. And his wife Anna, who I was really, at times I thought her acting was great. there's that very iconic scene that we'll touch on later in the tunnel, which was great. And then at other times I was like, what the fuck is this? It was awful. That's what I mean. It was so weird. Even Mr. Sam Neill himself at times was like really good, and then at other times was just
really hammy.
Yeah. And like a case in point is basically when he comes back and he says like, you know, I want to like. I want us to stay together. She's saying like, no, I want a divorce. He's asking her if she's been with anybody else, that kind of thing. And eventually he goes off and he has like this, you know, this drinking spree where he goes off on his own and he's just in a suit and he's covered in vomit and like the room's littered with stuff like that. And
for like 3 weeks.
For like 3 weeks, or he's just been on the piss.
Yeah.
But then he's in like a rocking chair and he's just rocking it.
Oh, when he comes back in.
Yeah, as far back as he can. And I was like, you've done something that's like, that could be really dark and really weird. And now I'm just like laughing at Sam Neill, like in this rocking chair, like going as far back as he can. And it seemed, like, I don't think that was an intentional thing. I think it was just like,
no, I think
weird.
It just is. I think it all just goes into the eccentricities of the director. I think the director is really just like, kind of just go for it kind of thing. Just fully like, I think literally like whenever they are overblown in this film, it is somewhat meant to show like what the
emotional turmoil.
Yeah, what they're actually thinking in their head. So what they actually think about certain people or things like that. That's what it seemed like very early on. It kind of somewhat loses its way later in the film. But early on, like, every time they have these overblown kind of moments, it's kind of like what they... I guess in the real situation, what you want to do or what you feel like you should do, but what you don't actually do, in most cases. In some bad, toxic ones, maybe. But, yeah. But like the beating each other up in the kitchen, throwing each other around, you know, all that kind of stuff is quite like... It's almost like what their mind probably goes through in this like chaotic situation.
Yeah,
their mind thinks, "I need to we need to just beat each other up because we feel so angry, so upset, so depressed, so many emotions that your body's like that." And that's also the way that he like sees other people. In the way that almost like you probably imagine people like when you're going through this kind of situation. The main one I thought of is the lover.
Oh, Heinrich.
But like Heinrich, and we'll get into the actual what you see. But just to say that I actually think that the reason we see him like Heinrich, for instance, in this really, and I am jumping around a bit, but I think it's more like
we always jump.
It's not really like scene to scene, but the. Heinrich, when he like opens the door, his chest is on show, and I swear as it goes on, like more buttons just magically start to open. He's literally basically like humping the door.
Yeah,
he's basically like, I could fuck you as well.
There's a bit of homoeroticism there.
There is, yeah.
You know,
but I think it literally, like I said, like that very literal kind of showing of emotion in front of you. That literally is, I guess, to the person who thinks his wife has cheated and has gone out with someone else. You probably see that man as this kind of, he must be the greatest man. He must be like the greatest, most sexual man.
Well, she says to him like, the sex is better. You know, like,
and that's why. And I think that's literally, we're literally seeing what Sam Neill's character literally is. He's almost represented as what he in his head is believing. Like almost what maybe the director, because I believe the director's wife cheated on him. Probably what the director started to imagine. What would this man be like?
This man
be like with his,
he must be like a Bond villain.
You know, this dude's got. He's got his black clothes or his white clothes. It's always so tight. It's always on the chest. He's always showing chest. He rides a motorbike. You know, he's probably got a big penis.
Oh, he's hung. Yeah, he is 100% hung. But he's German. He does some weird shit.
He's almost make believe. Yeah. He's almost this make-believe of not what any woman wants, because I don't actually believe any woman wants this man. You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe that this is exactly the man every woman's like, oh my god, that would be the greatest
That's
lover
the greatest lover ever.
You know, I mean,
a like 50-year-old German who lives with her mother.
if a woman is in the room with like, you know, like Matthew McConaughey or this dude, I don't see many women going, oh yeah, that dude.
But then
Heinrich, but I'm sure some people love him.
But then I brought this up on the podcast before, and it's always the weird ones who are hung. You know, I brought up before, like, you know, the weird guy at the pub in Churchtown who dressed like a cowboy. You know, like, you knew that dude fucked. He was weird. He looked like
How do you know he was hung?
You just know.
One night.
That one night, he dresses like a cowboy, and he's like in his 60s, and he's real skinny. You know he's hung. Because he's weird, man.
It doesn't matter where you live, whether you're UK, Europe, other parts in Europe, or America. There's always that one weird guy in the town who's either a homeless person that dresses like a proper crazy dude, or one way. I think we had two really. We had one that was a cowboy and would always appear as a cowboy, and then there was one that looked literally like Mick Jagger if he'd never been successful.
Saw them the other day. You know, still out there strong, man.
Still absolutely
you do
insane, like still mega insane.
Drinking pints of Stella from a measuring cup.
Yeah,
you do you, man. You do you.
But
Heinrich has that weird thing to him, and he chats a lot of shit.
Oh, he does. He absolutely.
He is the waffle. He's the one where I was like. Are you like? Why did you like? Obviously, I think you have a fair point about making this guy he is supposed to be that. I hesitate to call him an alpha male because that doesn't feel right. But he's that.
Well, he like literally he kicked, but he also like
he batters him like a bomb villain.
You know what I mean? He doesn't even have to put a lot of effort to kick his ass. That's why I'm saying to him he seemed like the alpha male. Although, however, he appears weaker as the connection to the wife when he himself is like. Her and Heinrich are actually, she's no longer with him. Yeah. When Heinrich appears vulnerable, suddenly Sam Neill appears himself like he's the he's the better man. There's even the contrast of the clothing. Heinrich is this like he's got his black top open. This section he's got tight jeans. They might have been leather. I can't remember. Probably but they look like they were probably like they were either tight black or they were leather black.
Yeah.
Whole pouch on show. But whereas Sam Neill looks like the most boring, dull dude ever. He's got a dude who's ready to be a spy. He's got like his jump on. He looks like a Ned Flanders dress.
He's on that Ned Flanders vibe.
He is fully like he looks completely weak and dull and uninteresting compared to Heinrich. Who looks like he's about to walk into an orgy and do every single person.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He just reloads. He just goes and goes. You know?
He has unlimited ejaculation.
Yeah, he does. Like it's that thing. I don't know if you saw it, but it was floating around and it was like, what if you nut in an orgy? What do? Do you just like sit there and wait and then throw it in? Like Heinrich just goes and then he's just straight on.
Yeah,
he's on the next round. He's got the he's got like
rabbit on heat.
Yeah, he's got the fast pass. He doesn't wait in line. He just goes. But he also just waffles absolute bullshit. And and he's the one where I was like, is he? I mean, obviously they're trying to make him this unlikable character. I think, to be honest, all of the characters are kind of unlikable.
I think so. I think that's meant to show the negativity. Isn't it?
I think the point is
there is no divorce. I don't think there's any winner in this. Like it is like the whole thing. Yeah.
No, divorce is destructive, man. And I feel like that's the message there. However, I feel like Heinrich just spouts so much shit.
Yeah.
And that I feel like, and this is just me, this is just the director being like, I'm going to make a point. I'm going to have some like wildly like philosophical conversations now about the soul and about being, and I'm going to write this. And to be fair, it made me think that the film was going to go in a certain direction because it's obviously it's called Possession. It's about this kind of woman who starts to slowly change, and I was expecting like maybe Heinrich, once he's got her claws in her, he's just dicking her good. But there was also that kind of weird when you first meet Heinrich and he's wearing all black. You see his mum as well, and she's like constantly in all black. I was, is this going to be a bit like culty, a bit like Satanism kind of vibe, you know.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really doesn't
It
go
doesn't
there
go that way at all.
It did
really
take me
doesn't.
off guard.
Yeah, it really does. From where it kind of goes is actually quite like interesting. Yeah. I think we'll get to that in a minute, because that's what kind of the twist about just after the midway point. I'd say it comes in and you're like, what?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a little bit more.
This is the point, actually. This is what I said. All of this kind of the talk of divorce. You know, you've got things like the scene with the when he comes home, which was actually apparently something that really happened to the director when he came home one day and his son was just in the house by himself. Had been left for like he wasn't sure how long, and his son was eating jam out of a jar, covered in like jam, and didn't know where his wife was and things like that, you know, and that all leads to like a dramatic like we're staying together, things like that, and it has that really like over the top when he's like, make the call kind of thing, like from Sam Neill, where he's talking to him. It just goes really over the top, and she's kind of going back between like, I don't know what to do, I'm conflicted, I don't know, you know, I want that dick in, but I want Heinrich's dick. I want a shriveled old pecker. You've got no shit, you know, you're terrible in bed, but you know, I want that dick in. But at the same time, we've got a son. It's like, yeah, but I forgot my son existed.
I forgot my son existed to go and get piped by Heinrich and something else.
And it just, it like, I quite liked it when it was all of this, you know, the imagery I thought was interesting. You have like even the teacher Anne, a teacher who is like Anne. I mean, is like you know, I can't
remember her name, but she just looks. It's the
same.
It's the same actress, but with green contacts.
Yeah, with really obvious eye contact. And you know, and the way it's like, it's almost like for him when it's mainly focused on Sam Neill, because I'd say a lot more of it is from his point of view. Yeah,
definitely.
You know, and when it is on him, that's where I like feel like everything was askew to his vision and how he was kind of his outlook on everything, how he was seeing things. When it was this, and it was kind of like, you know, almost like he's seeing a woman who's kind to him, and he's almost seeing her like the teacher as like, not that she actually looks like she looks like her, obviously, but that's in his mind that he sees her looking like her. The same way I said about how he looks at Heinrich and he's like, you are a sexual beast.
You are a sexual beast.
Whereas she is this like kind thing. She's almost like his brain is constantly invaded by this divorce, and it's constantly overtaking him, and they're almost, the possession is actually like how this changes people in a very, you know, over the top, almost oddly tense way that they're showing it in the film. So all those bits, you know, including the very sexual man, you know, and you know, you've got all these bits like the abandonment like he has of his child, you know, and what he feels must be because she has a new man and he's not focused on. He's like, just like, I can't see the child anymore. I won't see the child. It was not fair, you know. That's it, I'm done. You have your man, I'm done, I'm gone. And then literally the next scene he's like, I'm here to look after the child.
I'm looking after the boy.
You know, and even like the Marge character, like she comes in and she is like the friend. Straight away he's like, I fucking hate you. I hate you, Marge. But at the same time it also is like, there's almost this scene where you think they're going to fuck.
Well, they do.
Well, they do fuck.
He's just like, I hate you.
But that's almost it. It's almost like that. He's like seeing other women of that, like, I need to get back at her. I need to get back at this, you know. When at the same time of still feeling completely judged by the friend of her, like Marge. Yeah. You know, that weird kind of.
And it's all very self-destructive, isn't it? Because he's like,
and the way the wife is more distant, but also doing things and starts to like become more and more unhinged. This was the part in the film, and actually, I really liked the idea that it actually wasn't like a full-on possession. It was almost like overshowing it in this oddly, slightly suspenseful, tense kind of horror kind of way that divorce is like a horror show.
Yeah.
That I liked. It's actually when it gets more towards the, oh no, we kind of need to explain possession, when it goes to a literal possession that it starts to be, I didn't actually like it. And you might feel the opposite way around.
No, I kind of feel, I basically feel the same, because I felt like it was telling this story about, like you said, about possession, about like he very much saw her as like belonging to him in a way. Like he's off able to go and do all of these, like he's able to go and be in spy thrillers and then come home and be the family man when it suits him. Yeah, you know, and it probably that's part and parcel of the job, I imagine. But he very much like wants it on his terms, and he wants her life on his terms.
Yeah,
and then
to
control it, his controlling nature. And then she is obviously going off with Heinrich, and I was thinking, well, maybe like there's got to be, that's her kind of possession, is like she's got to be under the thrall of the sexual man that is, Heinrich, and something's got to be going on there. And you get that, you do get the scene where they have, where she like cuts her throat with the
that's what I mean. Like, this was like the climax of
the climax again.
This was the epitome of like what I was thinking of. This is also slightly around the time when it went away from it. To me, it felt all quite well focused of almost these stages that you tend to hear of with divorce. At first it's kind of the real anger of how's this happening to us. Then there's that kind of depression stage of it. Then there's a little bit of that. Now we've got to kind of balance our time together. But we're constantly like nagging at the other person when we see that. When the boy's left alone, or the distrust he has between basically anyone involved with her. Yeah. The fact that he's like, why aren't you telling me? And it's slightly him, like, because he's the one that was almost left. That he's the one that's kind of, where is she? What she's doing? So all of that felt like this big bubbling pot of something. And this scene, I thought was like, oh shit, this was really fucking tense.
Well, you get
everything she's doing in that kitchen. I was like, what the fuck are you gonna do?
Well, you get just before, you get that really fucking like harrowing bit where he just batters her. He's giving her left and right, backhands. He's giving her the business, and that's really fucking rough. And I was thinking, like, you claim that you love somebody and you need somebody so much. Yeah. And then you're just fucking battering them in front of your kid.
Yeah.
And there's something else going to the scene where she's cutting meat.
She says some... I can't remember what she says, but it kind of starts... I know that she also goes back at him as well, but she also says some, like, really, like... that's one of the ones which she mainly talks about, his manhood and how shit he is. How like worthless he is and stuff like that, which is no excuse for what he then does next. But I meant like it's that boiling part of she's like really digging into like breaking him down to nothing, and also that, as well as the fact that he notices that she also seems, even though she's in the she seems completely oddly distant and like uninterested in any of this. Like she's just in this kind of crazy, which is also one of the scenes when I was not when I thought the acting is somewhat odd. Because she was just kind of doing the shaking head thing as she was walking around the room. Like,
well, I mean, I thought...
like wobbling, like wobbling. I need to do this, I need to do that. And I was like, it like you said about him having to have that kind of... He wants it on his terms. She's coming in and trying to do all of the jobs around the kitchen, trying to do all that stuff. Like, there's that odd, like, kind of... she's getting more and more unhinged. He's unhinged and pretty much hit that pretty fast. Sam Neill spends the majority of this film unhinged. I actually quite like Sam Neill's performance because it's just him pretty much off the chain the whole film. I actually like, because she's the one that won like a Cannes Award and things like that. She's the one that actually won awards for her performance. And Sam Neill got 9, from what I'm aware of. When in some ways I thought, I know he's really weird in some scenes, but he pretty much has to spend the whole film consistently at this like level. But I was just like, damn, this must have been. He has said it's his most extreme film he's ever done.
Yeah, I read that.
Dude did Event Horizon, so that's pretty extreme.
But going to the scene where like she kind of cuts herself. It's just that like you said, that's a.
Well, she's got the electric knife
that she's cutting.
Where she's cutting the meat, and she already seems so unhinged that I'm like, the fingers, like her fingers keep going right next to the blade, and he's doing so, and I'm just like, she seems like she's going to do something.
And the way it's shot, where you can kind of see her doing it in the background,
and just slowly, and he's kind of doing things, and you're like, I was constantly just like. Waiting for it when she's lopping them fingers or when she's getting in those fingers, and then she goes from that and then takes the meat and starts putting stuff into the meat grinder, thinking, and you're like, oh god, and I thought it was a really good tense scene, that one. I was really like, oh shit, what's going to happen? And then it goes literally more for the literal of literally, I'm just going to start fucking
just cutting myself. And the stuff that Sam Neill's saying to us kind of really interesting for what follows, because he's saying like when she's not around, he thinks of her as this like savage and this horrible thing, and then when she's there, it's like nothing else matters. That's the only thing that exists, and that's the possession. One would say, that's the possession. 1981.
You're mainly there also like, holy shit, you two people should not be in a kitchen around any of this stuff. No, you two should not be in a kitchen with knives. No. You definitely shouldn't be able to, and you definitely shouldn't be in the same room while holding electric knives or meat grinders or any of this. Like, you're just sat there like, Jesus Christ, like, what is going to happen? You know what I mean? You know, even to him, like, and it is like, and that's why that's why I almost was like, I didn't actually feel like he needed any explanation of possession. I felt like it was just enough, like, you know, this kind of them slowly more. I felt like this would have been a really interesting film if it just continued to show the way that those two kind of break down,
because it's very
more and more body horror. Like, because when he starts slicing in, because he's just like, I need to have that pain as well. And he's almost got like they're both almost somewhat numb to it at the same time.
It's like, if you do it, I do it. You know,
I was literally there like, this would have actually a really interesting kind of oddly, you know, like body horror. This for divorce could be, you know, like substances for like, you know, for like aging and things like that. The way it shows that, like, I feel like there was a really interesting film about divorce here that was actually really already laid up. If they just continue to more and more break down and become more and more thing and more broken, more and more. That was the interesting film, I think, that actually is a really like strong film. Not that some of the stuff it isn't interesting later. There's definitely some very interesting scenes I found later. It's just, I think that this was like the peak point when I was like, this is really like, where's this going?
Yeah,
what's going to happen here? Because it feels like you're both going to become really unhinged, or really like either violent towards each other, or you're going to do things. But then this is kind of where it starts to go into the peaks of supernatural.
Yeah, I feel like after this is when Zalowski was stroking real hard.
Oh, this is the
world's... Yeah.
This leads to like the discovery, like, because obviously he's been trying to find out like what's like
where she go. She's not with Heinrich.
Even Heinrich appears at the door, like his crotch leaning against the door, like leaning against it, and he's like, she doesn't phone me anymore. Where is she? Yeah. Where is she?
And also, what's really funny is the teacher randomly turns up and is like, I want to see Bob.
This is the weirdest.
And then he pounds her. And I was watching this, and I was imagining, what if you just turned up one of your students' parents' house and was like, I want to see the child, and then you just read to them, and then you just banged the parents.
This was really fucking, yeah. This is why I was just there. Like, I was just there. So your teachers come over to talk. Your child's in the bath. So what do you do? Do you mind just finishing off this bath for him? Because I need to go and answer this call. Okay, I mean, I understand that in some situations, you know, they're like, we know you're going through something hard. I need to, but the idea that I just walk in and be like, bathe my child
whilst I deal with this.
Get my child out the bath, dry them, get them dressed, take them to bed, start reading or making them food. Like, literally, he just allows her to continue, and until he pops back in, like, yes, thank you did all of that for me. Now would you like to pipe?
No, that's how Jimmy Savile got away with it. It's the 80s, you know, people
because they just left him to it. There's a child by themselves. Yes, I'm just going to walk out and leave you and my child.
Now listen, my 6-year-old son, you have a special guest for your bath tonight, Jimmy Savile. Don't worry, I'm going to be out of the house. He'll be fine.
And there's also,
it's so weird.
What I also love this is after the whole time that he's been out, whatever he was on the phone, you know, someone ring. I think it was the investigator. I think
the PI, the world's worst PI.
That's exactly what I've got. The world's worst PI. But okay, we'll get to the PI next. But I love the fact in the scene when Sam Neill comes back in to talk to her, you know, with her glaring contacts that are just staring up at him. He's literally just like, it's the most obvious of a man coming back in and being like, you are a woman in my house. I'm definitely listening to what you're saying. He's definitely not. He's not responding to her like anything she's saying. He's like, that's great. That's great. How can I plow?
How can I plow? How can I plow?
It's literally so obvious. Anyway, yeah, so that is a really weird, the whole thing with the, like, you know, almost his rebound is the teacher that looks almost exactly like her. You know, him seeing
I'm sure
like,
this
his love that is still for his wife that is like read there, I think is quite obvious that it's meant to be like he almost needs to put the traits of his wife onto it because he still feels that connection to his wife and still wants that kind of
at this point that makes sense.
And at the same time you're also thinking like I guess you are also thinking, what's going on? Have we got like doubles here? Have we got like you know, whatever it is,
doppelgangers,
you know, invasion of the body snatchers or whatever. The world's worst PR. This was fucking. This was hilarious.
And this is what I mean. Like, you get something, and you're like, okay, something that could be really cool, really tense.
Yeah.
And it's just a fucking brain dead move.
This for me was the biggest point when it started to be like who could not see that the rest of it, yes, overblown, over the top, but I could find some reasoning in it.
Yeah.
This was the first point, which then leads into that supernatural twist, which is like here or there, when I was literally just like, fucking hell, how could no one, like, this is like not only just a thing, but this is a pretty terrible, this could have been a really interesting, like, suspenseful scene, like you said. Instead, it is shown so badly.
It's horrendous.
You know, this is like Euro trash level of over the top hammy and just being like, who the fuck would, you know? It's so goddamn obvious. Everything he does is like, Jesus Christ, are you meant to be like? How would no one know?
Yeah.
How does she not know that you're not there? Because it's fucking. She does know. She
knows.
There. Yeah, but it's like
it's fine up until the train. It's kind of alright because they get on the train. Some random bum just starts eating a banana that she has, and you're like, okay, he's watching. And then they get off at the train, the same stop, and she's
on the train when he looks at so he steps onto the train after having followed her, and she already had kind of noticed that he'd like been behind her, not at a bad, like a pretty damn close distance. Then he gets on the train, and it's so because it straight away goes to like that odd like looking around with your head. I'm just peeking around.
I'm
whistling.
not looking at you at all.
I'm not looking at you. Look at you. I'm not looking at you. Look at you. It's like literally as if he like slowly stepped closer each time. Like I'm looking around. I'm staring at you until he like got right up to her face. Or like did the old West Side Story, like
clicking
towards her.
But it's when they get off and she like starts walking faster, and he starts walking faster, but he's like 10 steps behind her, and then they're just running down the street together, and then he just runs into the building, and his whole thing is to run upstairs. And then pretend to be walking up the steps.
Yeah.
And then he goes and he's like, well, I know the perfect thing to do now. Currywurst. Kills and eats currywurst. Rings Sam Neill and is like, your wife's staying at this place. And then he's just like, goes up and he's just like banging on her door. Like, you've just chased this woman into her house.
And then he just runs past her up the stairs. She's like, what is it? And then, like, 2 seconds later, he comes back down the stairs and then knocks it like, oh, by the way, I'm an inspector of the house. I just need to look around. She's like, you literally just followed me for the last 40 minutes. And you believe, like, and obviously she's very aware of
course,
like, who this is. But you're also there, like, just when you just think about like what he's done, like on the train and stuff, like you're thinking your job is to gather information. It's just like, what are you gathering by standing and staring at her on the train while she's just sat there? There's no reason for you to be stood there. Like if you were a pro PI, you'd be like, sit down,
and just have a read.
Dude, you don't. She's not doing anything now, is she? This isn't even a time of mobiles and things like that. So you can't be like, oh, I need to hear that call.
A bum ate her banana.
It's literally that. Yeah, it's literally like she's literally sat by herself on the train doing nothing, and yet he still is like, I must keep looking at you.
They've got to stare at her.
I'm not a good PI if I'm not consistently always following you, because that's what a good private investigator would be like. Someone who's just never leaves the person alone until they're extremely aware that you're there.
that you're following them. And he makes this bullshit excuse like, oh, some glass fell on a woman. We have to inspect the windows in this derelict flat. And she lets him in, and then this is the point where I was like what is going to happen here? Like, she's gone to this seedy like apartment block right on the border of the Berlin Wall. Like, is this where Heinrich has been slithering off and given her a seeing to? But we know that she's curbed Heinrich at the moment.
Yeah.
And then you just get this random bit where like he goes into the bathroom and he opens it and there's like this weird tentacle creature.
Yeah. You can mainly just see like slimy, bloody kind of almost like a slug crawling up the corner of the wall or something like that. It's mainly what I could see in that scene. I was like, okay, whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah, and this is where I feel like the film really gets into like sniffing its own farts, you know?
Yeah, it goes it like this is almost when it's like, okay, so in some way technically this is when it really goes into full like a body horror.
Yeah, the full body horror and the full horror of the film kind of. And this is like an hour in, and I think it's just shy of 2 hours.
It's just it just for me it just didn't fully like I don't know. I just felt like it was one of those ones where it's just like I was quite happy. I liked the fact that go in and there's something different about Anna, and and she's got she's already acting weird and she's acting unusual and things like that, and she even makes some kind of an advance, but towards the PI guy, because mainly it seems more because she's overacting because she's very aware of him.
Yeah,
but I feel like Anna, the way that it's shown her in quite an interesting way, because I think for the husband or whatever in this situation, it would almost be like it's almost as if, and the possession is almost like your wife suddenly changes. That's almost what it is with divorce, because some people are so blindsided. You're like, what? You just suddenly changed.
Well, I guess if he's been away,
you've just completely changed. You're a different person. That's almost the way it feels.
Yeah.
And I think there's a very natural kind of way of seeing that as that possession, so quickly that you almost start to believe that other people must be manipulating or possessing or controlling her.
Yeah.
Because how could she just suddenly go from loving me to no interest at all? When we know that in terms of the context of the film, that didn't just happen suddenly. That wouldn't have happened suddenly anyway, because he's been so away and somewhat neglectful anyway.
Yeah.
But that's the way it feels. So when we get to this point and we know that she's cheating and we know that she's kind of lost it in a little way and something's happening. But the second we see this very literal version of it, for me it lost what was making it interesting in this more kind of grounded, surrealist kind of style. It's now a very literal, and this could have still been okay, but it just continues to get weirder, and not in a good way weird, in more of a, we've gone so far away from the very human themes.
That's where
I think it goes wrong. It goes away from what felt like very natural, real life stages of divorce being possession kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yes, the literal body form could have kind of worked in that as showing some kind of possession thing, but it doesn't really, because it just starts to branch off into all these odd little sidelines and the stuff with Heinrich and what Sam Neill goes to do, and it really loses the focus that I actually think it had for that first hour or so of the film.
Well, so she kills the PI. She stabs him up with a bottle, which I guess is our first kill. Is our first kind of bit, and then his lover, which is another detective.
The effects and stuff like that, the kill with the bottle, is good, and the creature is appropriately slimy and kind of gross in its own way.
Yeah, and it's kind of then she kills that detective's partner, and this is for me when the film starts to the wheels come off, and I think it starts to lose some of its message and some of its clarity as well, because I feel like we get those two deaths, and I'm pretty sure they're relatively quite quick through it, but then we get to this kind of really weird scene, or two weird scenes, but we get I thought it was dog shit. I'm sure there's people out there who probably love it. She won awards, so she probably did love it. People loved it. But there's the scene where she's talking about how it felt like she was being strangled by two women, and she's like, I'm being strangled by fate and I'm being strangled by chance, and they're both looking at me, and it kind of goes all weird, and I think it probably is him writing and being very much this is very deep and thoughtful stuff that I'm writing here, but also I think probably some of it did get lost in translation, to be fair, because it's quite stunted in its writing.
I do remember that scene and thinking this is basically the husband basically putting words into the mind, his wife's mouth, what he's trying to almost explain what his wife's feelings are, so he's saying it in a very the old soliloquy kind of way, you know what I mean? This
kind of very weird.
This big, long, kind of a speech-like way to be this is my... It's literally almost it's like if the husband wrote about a wife, but talked about only, mainly, he was trying to explain why she's such a...
why she's such a prick.
Yeah. It's mainly as if, an ex-husband wrote about his wife and mainly just complimenting himself, but mainly putting herself down. It's mainly like that.
You have to write. I have to write this soliloquy for her.
Yeah.
But I have to write about the nature of evil and how horrible she is, and nothing to do with my actions in any of this. I'm fine. Nothing to do with me.
it also, because we don't really get many scenes with the husband and wife alone together anymore, because it basically, the film then becomes all about what's in the room. It basically becomes about people going to find her, where's she gone, what's in the room. Well, that's what the film is now basically about. And it just keeps going in that kind of like, you know, we've got Heinrich and like Sam Neill's who go like...
But it's the miscarriage that's in the room, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's because there is that... And this is probably the iconic scene. And I think this is the point when Anna came in. And she was like watching it. She was like, that's... And I'd said... And before she was like, what do you think? And I was like, of what? And she was like, the film. And I was like, it's alright. Like, there's bits I like. There's a lot that I don't really like. And I said this woman, I really don't like her acting. But then this scene was great, you know, to give her flowers. This scene was great, and it was really kind of unhinged and quite uncomfortable to watch. And she's smashing up the milk bottles, and then she starts like oozing, you know. And it's this weird thing of like, so she has this miscarriage, which I'm assuming is maybe Heinrich's baby, or I don't know. It's never really explained.
No, I think it is meant to be that odd, like, imagery of, like, I guess the miscarriage or even whatever she's releasing or, like, what's coming through her. Because this scene, and is this the tunnel?
Yeah, it's just the tunnel.
Yeah.
Where she's, like, starts leaking and it's all, like, blood.
This is truly disgusting body horror, like.
It's great.
This one's really cool.
Scene.
Yeah.
It's really cool. But it's also, I think, starts to get I think... Maybe they could have done something there, but for me, it feels like it gets its head so... He gets so high on his own farts, talking about, like, the nature of evil, and, like, and fate was killed, so they only have chance, or chance is killed, and they only have fate, and this is what she's trying to raise, and she's been fucking it.
It goes off, it does go off into its own, very much its own little, like, world, and she, I feel like, gets to the point when she only has to act in one kind of main way of just being this kind of hazy, in Lost kind of way. And Sam Neill gets to the point when he's pretty much just on like hunt mode kind of thing, because he kills Heinrich.
Well, I think he gets into that stage where he's like, okay, like he tells Heinrich where she is. Yeah. But I can't remember if at this point he's seen the weird sex alien. I put it as dolphin.
So I think that's after.
Yeah.
Because he obviously sees, because you can already see it's got like Sam Neill hair when he sees it, kind of thing. Yeah. Whereas Heinrich sees it first because he gets like attacked, doesn't he? Because that's before he kills him. Yeah. Because we have that whole scene like where Heinrich drives up on the motorbike to the building, but he does this whole like spin around the whole block before he like pulls up like hard.
Humping, yeah.
You know, like he's making that final pump.
And now he's wearing all white.
Yeah, and then he gets like attacked and he gets stabbed by her.
Well, he sees it in the corner. Yeah, and now it's kind of like
more
a mixture between like a fetus and a it's like quite fetal and quite dolphin-esque.
Yeah,
and it's just looking at him from the corner, and you're like, and then for some reason it like blinds him almost. Yeah, and he's stumbling through the kitchen, and he's like, Anna, where are you, Anna? Anna!
And, you've got kind of a point when he's kind of been like, somewhat like with his relationship thing, he's kind of been left behind in some way because,
Pipes dried up.
Actually, I've got the note of because the scene before he goes to see him, I loved the line because this is the change of alphas. Where Sam Neill now appears the alpha. Not only does he appear taller standing in his doorway above Heinrich, who seems quite like tall, but Heinrich's like drunk and he's like worn down and it looks like he's lost his allure. Yeah. And he's not quite the sex machine. I mean, he gets it back when he's on that bike humping.
Of course he does. Fuck.
But I just love the way, like, there's this line where Sam Neill goes to him, like, because this is like Heinrich spouting off his like bullshit basically. Yeah. And what I quite like is the fact that he spouts off this bullshit, which I guess is the way that you would hear if someone else has got your wife or your partner, you are
like anything they say has got to be absolute dog shit.
I don't give a fuck. Like everything you say. And he calls, and she's saying like she must get like she is mine. Like I need to go and get her. And he says to him like, you with your yin yang balls hanging from your Zen brain.
Yeah.
And he's just there, I love that. I loved that line. It's just the fact that he really looks like he's lost all of that once allure that he had, because he thought that he was an unstoppable machine. She's mine now. Yeah. Once I hump, she is mine.
She is mine. Once she falls for Heinrich's penis.
She is, but he's lost all that, and then obviously he thinks I still must go and get her. So he gets, a little bit after, he rings, Sam Neill rings the mum and tells us it's here, and then we see him driving up. But in the scene, in the house, it just again shows that he's got no allure over her anymore. She's not interested. She is controlled by Beast, whatever it is. And obviously I'm expecting him to die in that scene kind of thing, but he just manages to escape, but he's being stabbed, he's making his way, and then it's really weird, because he's Sam Neill's what? You're attacked, you've been stabbed by a creature, there's a creature inside there, interesting, meet me at the bar.
Yeah, meet me at the bar on the corner.
No, let's not go to a hospital or anything, no, meet me at the bar, don't call the police, no, meet me at the bar. And
he's be quick, and he's I'll be there when I'm there.
Yeah. And then it's almost I have no use for you anymore. Bang! Slams him across the head with the top of the toilet.
Well, it's the weirdest thing, because
it just changes. I couldn't really read why that happens or why any of that goes down. But
because I think it's the possession. It's him being I'm now going to take control of this. I'm now going to be the one who does this. He goes to the flat, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Because he goes to the flat. He's I think Anna has attacked, and then. When maybe he's there,
he does see him, and that's why he sends. No, that he does see something, because that's why
he sees the. I can't.
He sees something. No, he doesn't see a full kind of thing, but he, because before that, that's when he sees what he's what the fuck is that? Because it kind of looks oddly like him in some way by that point when he sees it, kind of thing.
I can't.
I'm mixing around where that bit was.
The scenes.
Yeah,
but I know he sees the.
This is what I mean. This is.
He sees the dismembered bodies.
This shows me where the point where I was kind of this is all kind of blurring together.
Yeah, I'm zoning out.
We've talked too much about this whole supernatural voodoo. This no longer is that kind of interesting thematic play on a relationship. This is now into full on weird creature feature. That's but. It's just, it feels also we're just repeating ourselves.
Yeah.
Some of her scenes are a bit samey.
Yeah.
And Sam Neill's now kind of lost the original kind of where he seemed to have a purpose. Right now, it's what, where?
But now, now he's just doing it. He's just doing it. He's just possessed. He's just I got to keep us safe. I got to take control.
And then
the Heinrich's death.
Oh yeah,
which is fucking hilarious. So they go into the bathroom. And then Heinrich's, ranting and raving, we have to do something, we have to go to the police. And Sam Neill's no, not doing that. And then he's well, then you have to pay me. I know you have money. And then he's and then
it's
Sam...
so fucking weird as well. You just why?
But this is my thing. This is where I'm also this is just the fucking weirdest thing. And it's almost something you'd expect in a comic. It's actually reminded me of an amazing scene in I Think You Should Leave, and that's when Sam Neill concocts this idea when he goes to a bin and he takes a shoe and a feather, and then he goes into the bathroom, he blocks the shoe and he puts the feather down his throat and he makes himself sick. And I don't know if you've seen I Think You Should Leave, but there's one the wedding photograph where they're taking a picture and the old guy's it's really funny, let's do one, and then the photographer is let's do a funny one, everybody grab a prop, and they get 3 seconds and the guy's trying to get something and everybody takes the good bits and all he's got is a feather, and then just before they take the picture he puts it down his throat and makes himself sick. It's fucking amazing. And that came to mind when I was this, and I was you're behind a locked door, you don't need to commit to the feather. You can just be I've been sick. Or put your fingers down your throat. You don't need to put a feather and tickle your throat. It's so fucking funny.
Generally in this film, I felt I could, as I said, Heinrich, I felt I could explain him. But I guess he's also so over the top and such a cheesy ass character that, I can both understand why he appears that way and why you would make that kind of choice. I understand it.
Yeah.
But it also gets to this point when it's like, what the fuck are we doing here? And when Sam Neill's character also starts to do weird fucking shit, you know that you're into you've gone beyond the surreal, and you'll start to get a little bit kind of odd with it and goofy with it.
He makes himself sick with a feather. I fucking loved it, man.
And then, I mean, to be honest, this is also like, we've gone to one stage to the next, you know.
Yeah.
I enjoyed, and that was more than just the first act, you know. The first into most of them, pretty much the first half of the film, as I said, I was pretty much like into it. It is the introduction of the creature. I was willing to be like, where's this going? By this point, it was getting a bit silly. Then it goes fucking action movie, what the fuck, spy film is going on here, into a weird fucking, like, I was just like, why are we in this major, like, why are we going through this major, like, you need to come back, you need to come and be with us, and why are we going through this whole goddamn, like, chase through the goddamn drive, get in the car, oh shit, crash, oh you're dead, like, get out, run.
Well, just to kind of breeze through what happens after he drowns Heinrich, he kind of, you know, he goes back to the main flat, he blows it up, he's done a gas leak in there, because he's trying to cover it up, basically, he's trying to get rid of that. He goes back to their flat together, and Margie she's been cut up, she's dead, and I think he does, at some point, he sees, you know, he sees her pounding the creature, you know.
Yeah, he definitely does.
He sees the tentacle creature.
When I said, like, he is now like forming almost a weird doppelganger of him.
Yeah, and that's weird. And then you get like, they then have sex in the kitchen, Anna and Mr. Sam Neill. And then that's when they're like, let's make a plan to, you know, to cover up the death. Heinrich's mum just kills herself.
Yeah,
she's just
like, takes some sleeping pills. I'm done.
Yeah, I've done this. My son's dead. I'm fucking gone.
Doesn't seem that bothered.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that bothered. And then that's when, you know, you get the weird bit, I think. I guess the police are there because they're like, Margie's dead, that kind of thing. They want to ask him a little bit. At
this point, it feels like you're out of the realm of real life, real police. Any of that just feels like, none of that seems to appear and like be a part of the world that you've made at this point, because this all just seems so surreal that no one's getting involved in any of this.
Which is perfect.
Has any of this happened? God knows.
Yeah, which is fucking perfect for Euro horror, but it just feels so weird because it's almost like that first hour of the film takes itself so seriously, and then we get this jump into the nature of evil and all this dog shit philosophizing, you know, that feels so poorly done. And then you just get like a scene where they go to the detective's house because nobody's seen him for a while, and Sam Neill like holds up a taxi driver and is like, drive into that as fast as you can, and then just shoots some of the police officers, gets shot himself, and then goes on a high speed chase. Has an accident that looked like he did it on purpose. That's the thing. I was watching it and I was like, why did he just purposely?
It constantly seems like he's just hurting himself. Why? I don't know why he's on the run, but like, you're just like, why are you continuing to do things that are causing you pain?
Yeah. And maybe, I don't know, maybe there's something there about self-destruction.
Yeah,
maybe
I mean, there is, because there's the whole...
the whole film is very self-destructive.
You can take, you know, all like a lot, and I'm not saying that it loses this completely. Like, there are still, you know, him and his wife coming back together, that kind of falling back, you know, where they've both got still something for each other in some way, but it's not quite working anymore.
Yeah.
The destruction, you know, this kind of brutally, like, still breaking yourself down, you know. It's almost like they've got to come through this, like they've got to go through the other side before they can become who they are afterwards, kind of thing. And even to where, you know, even to the, you know, the doppelganger part, you know, that we've already got with like the teacher who was the doppelganger kind of that he already saw, and then what we get with him. That, you know, again kind of shows that way that, you know, the people kind of say that after it they're not really the same person anymore. They're a different person. You know, to be very like clear and on the nose with it, it's pretty much is that. Like, it's pretty much like two people, you know, and we'll talk a bit about like where that gets that point. But when you've got these like doppelgangers of two people, you know, almost like invaders, like they're almost someone different, but you've almost changed.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it showed. But what I mean is, like, earlier in the film it worked because it was more about the couple and relationship and this interesting, like, story of that. Later in the film it gets so in itself about also... It's almost literally like the director was writing this in his state of depression about his divorce. And he was doing this really... almost like writing a play about his divorce in this really over-the-top way, and showing how the horror of divorce and showing it in this interesting light. Then about halfway through writing, he took some E and he fucking got himself blitzed.
Yeah.
And the writing went from, I'm still writing about the divorce, but I'm getting fucking weird with it.
Yeah, I'm getting into this.
And I'm kind of losing track of what I was talking about. And I'm kind of forgetting where I was going with this. So I'm just going to go fucking weirder with it. I'm going to get real weird with this shit. You know
and he does get weird with that shit.
But that's what I mean. Like, it just really, in terms of, like... I've literally put on my notes that, I think that there is a really good film in here. The idea. And I think if that theme had played out for the whole film and just kept it more subdued, I don't even think like the whole that they're different people or even the creature stuff maybe, but it's just surrounded by so much exposition that suddenly comes, so much weird action scenes,
so much wank,
so much monsters, like extra like creature stuff, so much Heinrich's dick. All that stuff just really oddly bogs down, which I actually think was quite a interesting, subdued kind of, personal horror story, which is then taken because they felt like they had to really push boundaries, which I don't think are well pushed.
No.
That's just what I mean. Like they're remaking this film.
But yeah, I've heard that they might be.
The director of Smile, he's doing it with Robert Pattinson. So they've already there's already a deal in place to do it. So they're remaking it.
There's an Indonesian remake as well.
Oh, there was apparently that follows kind of on from that. But I just kind of more interested in that they actually kind of more stick with that theme.
They'll get weird with it.
And get weird. They will go weird with it. And I'm not saying the weird monster doppelganger thing actually wouldn't necessarily work. As I said, I think thematically the almost like you lose yourself and then there's someone else that takes your place because you're almost a different person on the way out. Actually works as a theme. Actually works as an idea. It's just the way that it's done in this film. I don't think
it does. It doesn't really take off, does it?
That whole chasing up the stairs. We're together again, and now we're getting shot up because for some reason they know what we are. Even though I feel like it wasn't made clear enough to anybody for them to start literally. I started shooting the place up. You know what I mean?
And they were going for them as well.
They're blasting them up the stairs. And then it has almost a Romeo and Juliet style of like, oh, you're dying, no, stab.
I'm going to die myself first. I will shoot myself in the back.
Yeah, I will literally shoot myself on the stairs in the back, and you're just like...
Well, I'll jump over the balcony.
And at that point, you're just like, okay, self-destructive, but you're also like, I don't know what any of this thematically meant. I just know that you've now gone to weird... actiony, you want to show your destruction, your self-God, whatever it is that
so
the whole relationship is imploded. Basically.
Yeah, I guess you could argue that. You could argue that like it's effectively then that's the end in the strange way. Like they're divorcing, but maybe that they can't live and function without each other. Maybe it's the symbolic and literal death of the relationship.
Yeah.
Because the weird thing is then the doppelganger goes upstairs smiling and he's got a gun now and he gives it to some random woman and he's like, shoot them and then give me a booster. Give me boost up through the window. And then he goes back to the flat and poor Bob, whose parents have both committed murder-suicide, he's like, don't open the door to the teacher, because obviously the teacher is now looking after him, the doppelganger teacher. He goes and just drowns himself in the bath, which maybe you could say like divorce and how that has an effect on children, maybe.
Yeah.
But then I guess the idea is if you're saying like the relationship is effectively toxic and the relationship is supposed to be over and it's supposed to die with them. Like, what's with the doppelgangers? Are they drawn together? Are they supposed to stay together? Are they talking about the soul?
It's because
What the fuck are they talking
I
about?
think there's a literal. Like I said, I think it in some way it is like you're right. It's it's the death of their relationship. It's the new them coming out on the other side because they're not exactly close in that scene. Like her version, her doppelganger and his doppelganger, but they're not exactly like, oh, we're together.
No, but he's after her. You can tell.
Yeah. So, and that's what I mean. I think it's that kind of maybe that his top and that may still show that although they're both now almost different people from what they were.
Yeah.
I guess the hostility of him may still be showing its way through. The child dying, obviously, is like, as he said, like the damage and hostility can do of this situation, like not realizing the effect it can have on the child. And it's kind of like this kind of the world. It's got this weird ending of like the world is almost ending, like it's all coming to.
It's like all the police are kind of after them, and
it sounds even bigger than that. It literally sounds like almost like a war or bombs about to go on. And it's all that kind of like it's almost like
it's like the Cold War.
It's damaged them all so much that the whole world is ending.
East and West are going at it, rabid dogs, and
I think all of that plays. I think you can find it, and I can't say that a film is a bad film when I can read into this kind of thing. Some of it I think is very obvious and very like on the nose, and it's like so obvious. It's like we both feel smart for the fact we're picking these.
We are very smart.
Clever people.
We are clever boys.
We're extremely fit, even though I think anyone
it's heavy-handed with it.
That's pretty obvious, of that thing. But at the same time, I think that we can read into that does make it for somewhat of an interesting watch. If you've got a film, at least you can like dig some ideas, or you're thinking about it in different ways. Then that makes it more interesting. It just is the sad that it kind of bloats. It literally goes from quite simplistic in some ways, over the top, oddly theatrical, hammy, in that way, but once you get used to that, and that's quite a lot of European style film, in that way, they like that over the top anyway. If you watch a lot of European like dramas and stuff like, especially say if you're talking about like say French, Norwegian things like that, they are very kind of
over the top.
They like that. This is why she won at Cannes Festival, French Festival. They like that. French films especially have quite like overblown performances. So that's the way that they like to see these things, but. I just feel that like it might be like at the start, but it just for me it just really bloated and went in really random directions that just felt like they were just like what's going, why? Why did we lose the nice simplicity? Or if we're going to go into body horror, we could still keep it somewhat about the relationship and the changes instead of adding all these extra variables and characters that we didn't need there. Like why?
I agree with you on that, man. I mean. Should we have a little talk about the video nasty side?
Yeah. I think so. Building to one of the points of these episodes is the all of the horror that stemmed in this. This when you first look at it from video nasty, obviously this has you can tell the signs. I think even before the creature is revealed, I could understand why this would be. It has obviously violence towards each other. It has like the child neglect part. And then we've even got that scene, with them cutting themselves. Yeah,
the self-mutilation is a big no-no.
All of those things, I think, would have been enough anyway for people to go, well, that's not giving a good message, Whether that would have fully pushed it into that, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think if it was continuing down that line, it would have been. But because it also then, once you get to the, stabbing people in the throat with bottles, a weird slimy creature, fucking a weird slimy creature, having the whole throwing up disgusting blood leaking out your ears, leaking out of your body, possession kind of part. You 100% can see why this would be a video at that time. And I think a lot of those elements do kind of as to why it became such a big offensive kind of it hit the blacklist. The original cut was banned in both the UK and the US. It was obviously hit that video Nasties list because it did get a release in the US, but they cut it down. They cut a third of the film out.
Yeah,
81-minute cut. They said at the start. Yeah,
and I think I read that gave it kind of a pretty negative reception because it cut off a lot of the family drama stuff, I think. Yeah, so it kind of ended
That's
up
the weird
being
thing. You think when they said they'd do the cuts, that the cuts would get rid of the body horror parts.
Yeah.
Instead, apparently, they mainly cut out the drama
and
parts.
It's just a schlocky
the
body
parts
horror.
about, the breakdown of marriage, or I guess the parts that you could, people would say that's really bad because it shows a really toxic relationship. So they might be like, that's going to have a real negativity more than this creature feature kind of thing. So they turned it into more of a creature feature. Some people say that was even less. That was less for the actual fact of the cut in America. That was less for cutting it because of the whole, oh no, we can't show these images. That was actually more that the studios thought, no one's going to give a fuck about that. No one's going to care about this. We just want to see this weird body creature.
We want to see the fetal alien fuck.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We want more.
We want to see it pound.
We want more things, more of that body horror nature. We want more of those creepy things. We don't give a shit about that. So getting rid of the emotional and psychological pain of the couple and the disintegrating marriage, a lot of that went out the window. And as we've already said, I thought that early on, that probably means cutting out probably most of the first part of the film. The part that we both kind of said we preferred was the part that would have gone. So I can understand why people would have been like, what the fuck? And also, I don't know how you cut this film to make that make any fucking sense.
No, but then part
of Heinrich.
Yeah, but then part of me thinks that maybe that might have set the tone different for the film. And you might have been like, oh, actually, I'm not going to get this kind of weird, it starts off kind of relatively kind of grounded-ish psychological drama that then jumps into tentacle fucking creatures. Maybe I'm going to get 15 minutes of, this guy was a spy, his wife's weird, why is his wife weird? I'm going to hire a PI, And maybe watching it without all of that might kind of, in a strange way, might
change your look on
the film. I'm trying to be optimist regarding it. I imagine it probably doesn't. I imagine it makes it
this one, to be fair, it is described as a hacked cut. They said it was unrecognisable from Zalewski's initial audience version. What he wanted them to see. It was a box office flop, major letdown. The film grossed $1 million, 1.1, after being released in October 28th, 1983. So $1 million, but that was it. That's all it made in its whole run. A theatrical film being released like that, that is not good.
I mean, I can get it, to be honest. It's a
very, even as this cut, to be honest, it's a niche.
It is a cult classic. You know
what I mean? It's one of those that is big in certain spheres, but in terms of being big for that, when it came to UK though, the film was banned, so you get no returns there. But for a film that had a 2.4 million budget, it didn't make back its budget.
No.
So that is an extremely, and obviously it had its cult label, but like all of the best video nasties as we know it, this was one of those big sellers when it came to, which is really interesting because unlike something like The Evil Dead or something like that, when you're thinking I know, if I spent £100 on a videotape for that, at least you're getting
you're getting some bang for your buck.
If you spent £100 and then sat down, the fuck is this?
What is this?
They think they spent £100 on some weirdly over the top play about about a married couple going over the top. I think for the first good half an hour of the film, you would literally be what the fuck?
I don't think people would make it to the hour.
You're going back down to the black market asking the bloke who's literally going to beat you to death if you try to ask for a refund. And he'd just be like, maybe it's worth it because this was not what I wanted.
I don't think buying things illegally affects my consumers' rights.
It's interesting. I mean, literally, it got the first time it ever got released in the UK was 2010.
Yeah.
So that, almost 30 years it took to get there. That's probably one of the longest spans I think we've had for our video nasties. And that wasn't even the proper cut. We've only just, in the last few years, through Blu-ray restoration, 4K restoration, those kind of restorations, have we actually finally got the actual original cut of the film. You know, so thinking this film went nearly 40 years without ever getting that full cut. Race. You know, a film that, you know, involved, you know, the possibility of, you know, prosecution because of people trying to sell it on the black market.
Yeah.
And it just is. It's weird. It's not like people getting hold of Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Evil Dead and be like, "Fucking hell, that was a horror film." You know what I mean? This was definitely one more of those people. You know, when they would have been like, to be fair, when you get to the fucking scenes, you know, with that like all her freak out scenes, yes, there is some body horror that would be like, "Oh damn," you know what I mean? What the fuck, you know? And, you know, if you were watching it, you know, you get some boobs, you get some shagging in different odd ways.
You get to see some tentacle squid.
But there's a lot of padding around that for some people would just be like, why am I sat here for this? This is a film that 100% is not going to be for everyone.
No, definitely.
And in fact, I think a lot of people would think, oh, that's really cool. And a lot of people would be like, what the fuck am I watching? Right now?
I don't think it was for me, to be honest.
The weird thing is, I really thought this was going to be for you. When
I hoped so. I hoped so, man.
I was sat there watching this film, and when I was first not sure about it, I was like, this has got that weird Eurofin, or weird bit of that Italian ish.
Yeah.
That I was like, this is going to fuck with Rob.
And I hoped so. And I really wanted it to. And it started off, and I was like, I could get behind this. And then it, like you said, I think it just got, you know, I don't want to say it weirder and weirder, because I like weird films. But it got to the point where it was just trying to philosophize things. It was trying to, I feel like it was trying to be really kind of like really smart and intelligent, and like we were saying before, it was really trying to be really art house, when I feel like the simplicity of that first hour and the messages within that were strong enough that it then didn't need to go into these weird doppelgangers, this weird kind of like, I'm trying to explain things and I'm trying to do all of this.
Yeah.
And I feel like it just really lost itself in that. Before that, I thought it was kind of decent. I could see where it was potentially building. It held my interest in pieces. But yeah, I really wanted to, because I mean, I love Euro horror. I love all that weird shit. But this just didn't. I was hoping it would, you know, scratch that itch, but unfortunately, it just didn't. You know. I mean, yeah. I think I would still recommend people watching it, because I mean, you should always go and check films out. But I think you should go into it with some kind of strange, or some expectations that it is a weird film, and it kind of, I would say it's probably more psychological drama than it is straight up body horror, you know?
Yeah, I mean, from what I saw when I was reading about this, when I first read about like his effect through his divorce and stuff like that, honestly, once I read the stuff knowing a bit more about the context behind the film, I actually found it more interesting, because when I first started watching it, and it was one of those kind of ones where I was like, I'm just checking, like I kind of just checked, like what's the idea? I wanted to kind of know the idea. So when in the first 10 minutes or so, I kind of looked on my phone and was like, what is the? I was like, this is the, like, I knew about the divorce, but I didn't know so much about the background of the director. Once I knew a little bit about like his mode of things, I could get a little bit more into that kind of, okay, it's basically like someone just writing down their emotions and feelings and just throwing it out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can understand that a bit more. I can understand that. And some of it, I was like, I do think that actually it shows quite a good variety of that stages of divorce. And that's why I've said I really enjoyed that part. And, you know, there's lots said on, like, you know, about the effects on, you know, all these scenes, the effects it had on the actors. Isabelle Adjani, like, literally, she tried to commit suicide after this.
Christ.
So she had said it had such a mental effect. And the director himself has then like confirmed that yes, she did try to, like about 6 weeks after the film.
Yeah.
She literally tried to take her own life because she couldn't get rid of this weird, that she'd really thrown her mind mentally into this scene. Like performing that, you know, tunnel scene, literally, you know, that she said took her all. She was just she felt emotionally like drained and things. And even Sam Neill said how hard of a film it was to make, because they were basically just constantly being apt to just go, weirder and go darker and go deeper.
And they're very
you're not
each
there,
other,
and you're not right, yeah. And that's where I think a lot of that kind of really over the topness just kind of comes through. And and that's why I could get on board. With the literal emotional in your, and I think that plays more, like with the video nasty kind of part, that background stuff, there was a lot of stuff coming out of it about what a kind of crazy this was, and even how like odd the director may have been, because the director literally had a film before. He'd started filming like a film previously where he'd done like 2/3 of the film, and then they said, "What the hell is this? This is so strange." So he didn't get to do it. They took him away. They took away the money. They stopped making the film, and he went back like 10 years later, and then continued to make that film.
You got to be
it's
weird.
One of the weirdest journey films ever.
Yeah.
They said it was so unfocused. He'd spent almost 20 years of his life trying to make this film, and they were like, "What is this? This so unfocused film." And that's kind of what we've got here. We've got this really odd, unfocused thing where in some ways it feels like the person is intentionally trying to be controversial.
Yeah.
He is trying to be, he is trying to be that, they call, a lot of the reviewers called it that he is like, this is like knockoff Giallo. This is trying to be Giallo and it's not working.
Yeah.
Not Giallo, that we know that that's actually more like investigation murder mystery.
But it's trying
to be that style. It's trying to copy that Italian style that's been so controversial and on so many banned lists and stuff like that. And some people say that like the film goes from like, and I do believe the film goes from an interesting concept to basically trying to be intentionally, over the top. And I think it doesn't really, add to the overall effect of the film. So it's weird. I went into this film, I'd heard so much about it, so I really wanted to watch it. And, I really wanted to check it out when I'd seen a bit more and heard more about it. And so many people this year, because this is like the first time loads of people have seen it. So this was on so many people's like list of like their first watches this year. And like loads of people love it, and I do like it a lot. I think there's a lot of good stuff in it. I just wished it was more focused on what was working with it, and it doesn't, it just does what a lot of some of these do, and they just go off the rails in the like towards the third act and feel like they have to just go crazy with it, And as much as some of the craziest scenes later on are very effective and interesting, the story itself, I think, just loses its way completely.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with you on that. I think I read a lot of people who, I'm pretty sure it was this year that it came on, or maybe late last year. They all kind of blend into one. But it was very recently, and I kind of agree. I felt like I heard a lot of praise for this film, and I went into it being quite excited, going into it with, like I said, really no knowledge or expectations of what it's about, apart from Sam Neill, his wife's going a bit cuckoo, for lack of a better word, to sum it up in layman's terms. But I feel like, I don't want to say I was disappointed watching it, because I feel like that implies that I went into it with some level of like understanding or level of hype behind it.
Yeah.
But I kind of agree. I feel like it started off interesting, and I feel like it definitely had potential. But I think once it got into the PI and you had these moments where, like you were talking about the style of Euro horror, but it's almost like there were elements where the ridiculousness was so dialed up that it was really challenging to take something seriously.
Yeah.
Like the when he's rocking in the rocking chair and he's just like so ridiculously doing it. And the PI is like chasing after the woman, and you kind of feel like, yeah, if I was watching this in a Giallo or in like another Euro horror, that scene would still be there, but it wouldn't be so horrendously done. There would still be an element of like she clocks him, but it wouldn't be like he's chasing her down the street.
That scene is very bad.
Yeah,
I do feel like it is. It felt like it was trying to be somewhat Argento to me, and I would went into this film expecting. To be honest, when I heard possession and things like that, I expected there obviously to be a supernatural probably element to it. And when I first started watching it was more grounded. But I kind of was more thinking in the way that this would end up being more of a maybe a possession through more of a Suspiria kind of,
that's what I was thinking.
Bit of a creepy undertow or some kind of cultish thing. Or she's been taken in, things like that.
dick is
and when the film goes through, and then as I said, when I watched the film, I was like, oh no, it's actually going to be much more simplistic than that. It's actually just going to be like
a metaphorical
the way that two people start to break down and break apart, in that kind of interesting way, and then it just went into slightly more feeling more like a trashy kind of version as it goes towards the end. And it's a mixed emotion because I can't say it's a bad film. No, it's not a bad film. I think it's interesting, but
I don't. I feel like there's definitely like moments of it that I think are bad, but then there's some good stuff in there. I feel like a lot of the themes, particularly in the first half, are pretty well done and well managed. I wouldn't say I particularly enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say it was a bad film. I feel like it's one of those ones where I wouldn't give it a 5-star film. I think there's so many flaws there. But then I wouldn't say that I
wouldn't completely trash it and say no one should trash it. And it has some iconic, I think I understand why some scenes are seen as quite iconic.
I can understand
a couple of them are very interesting, and I think once you get into the style, the performances are interesting, especially in the first half of the film.
Yeah, it feels. I feel like I guess it feels very muddled.
Yeah,
and trying to give a film that, like I said, I didn't really enjoy, but I can see the merits of aspects of it. It's kind of hard to do. I get that as a glowing review there.
You know? That's our mix. You can see how mixed we are on this. Like, it's a very mixed film.
It's a very mixed film for us.
As far as we can go with video, and that was, although the video was brief, it is still one of the larger of the band films within Video Nasty. It still had quite a long period. It's also one of the ones that I think had one of the biggest cuts of the film, and the version that was released had such an impact on the way people viewed it, which is why now people are viewing it in much of a better way, because it was somewhat trashed at the time because of the terrible version and the terrible cut that was given to the world, that now people are looking back at it and going, wow, that bit's, there's actually some really interesting stuff, or people have finally got to see certain cuts in its full glory, which they didn't get to see before, which I think for some fans is why maybe some people who'd also known about this film for a very long time, it might be like, I finally get to actually see it as it should have been seen. So I understand that there may also be an additional cult passion behind this film. But I think for more people are viewing this just as like kind of not really sure anything about it. Although it's somewhat interesting, it's not going to hold your attention in that same way for some people. I think some people are really going to be turned off by this film.
Yeah. What I would say, if we're talking about holding people's attention, is that the best way to make sure that your attention is held by the CMTH boys is to give us a lovely subscribe, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you're talking about mixed reviews, I would advise that you give us a glowing review, and you write something and you leave us a lovely little message. It does really help the show grow. That's our kind of brief foray into Possession, and its kind of status as a Video Nasty, and our kind of first review and first initial reaction to a viewing of it. Maybe in time with another reaction we might think different. I think we kind of both are struck that it might be one of those
grow
films.
Like a fetus.
It'll grow like and then we'll pound it. So come and let us know your thoughts on Possession, whether whether you have fallen for Heinrich's thrusts, or whether you two think it's a bit of a weird creature that should be destroyed and killed. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at CMTH Podcast. Take care, hit that subscribe button, and we will see you next week as we prepare to get festive. Bye bye.